All right, so as I get started here, I need a little interaction. How many of you here by raise of hands have kids? All right, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to speak to you tonight about camping. Camping is a huge part of the Olsen family. Camping is an awesome way to bond as a family or as a couple. So it's good for those of us with kids. It's good for those of us without kids, okay? I started off our marriage early on. We went camping, probably one of the first things that we did. It didn't end well. Dust storm came up, I ran my wife into the truck. Kind of don't live it down to this day, okay? If you have doubts or reservations, I'll show you that it can be very enjoyable. And I'm going to talk about budget constraints, negatives and positives, sharing the experience with your family members and others, and living out your dreams, okay? Camping can be done on any budget. When we started out, I've been camping since I was a kid, and budgets were very tight. So our kids went camping from probably within a couple of weeks of being born. That's how quickly we would take the kids out camping. And we would just make do and adapt to it. So one of the ways that we would do this is through backyard camping. So you could go in the backyard, you could set up the tent, you could set up a little fire pit, and we would do backyard camping inside the backyard. It's pretty cool because you don't really need to alter the food budget, you don't need to alter anything else, you just get the kids outside and go camping. The other ones that we would cover is, I'm a transplant to Kansas. I grew up in Utah and Wyoming, and I grew up in the outdoors. I'm an avid outdoorsman, but that doesn't mean that my family is. My wife pretty much was stuck to living inside of Wichita. Her only experiences outside of Wichita was occasionally going to Kansas City and visiting a family member. So she had very little experience outside of it. So early on in our household, we started with the aspect of staycations. So staycations is our own little made-up word, and we checked out local lakes and local areas in the vicinity, and then we would just plan a weekend and we would go spend a day or two out at a local lake, and it didn't take very much. We were confident that the car would get there and back in one piece, and we would go camping and have our little family vacation. Another way that we would work into things, so a lot of our staycations would be El Dorado Lake, just east of us. We'd go spend time there. You can get into a very cheap, usually just a normal camping spot, or you can just go out for a day trip. We do lots of day trips with the kids, and we'd go out and just go camping for the day and then come home for the night so that you could tuck them into the crib and you didn't have to mess with the tent and all the other stuff like that. There's a ton of places in Kansas to get out and go camping and actually enjoy the outdoors. Turning negative experiences into positive experiences. So we are camping at Marion Lake, which is about an hour and a quarter north of us here, and we had a tropical storm move in. It was in July. We had a tropical storm move in, and it ended up raining for about 16 hours straight. And so we were all trapped. We started in the tents collapsed. We wound up in the minivan. We were all packed in the minivan, and then my wife backed the minivan into a tree, going to the restroom, blew out the back window of the minivan. Then we had to rig plastic up in the minivan. And the beauty of this story is that after the storm blew over, the next day we had some of the best fishing and camping for the next 2 days after that. So kids never forget that. It always goes into it, okay? We have camp chores. We have things like incorporating the kids into making meals or washing the dishes. They think when they leave home they get to get away from those. No, they get to do them while they're camping too. make sure they have fun, but they still have chores. Scavenger hunts. I would set up the scavenger hunt and draw it up and then make the hide stuff and make the kids go get and find the stuff in the scavenger hunts. We would have them, they build fires and we'd roast marshmallows and s'mores and having all kinds of good stuff that way. Exploring nature. We went up to a camp in northwestern Wilson Lake in northwestern Kansas. Did tons of hiking with the kids. Had a tornado come through the area, so we spent the night in the bathroom. Another fun little experience that we turned into a positive. So we were sleeping in the bathroom while the tornado was going through and with young kids. And then we came out of the bathroom, the tents were destroyed. The awning to keep the baby in out of the sun was destroyed. And we ended up sleeping in the car for the next 3 hours again. And we ended up having a great time. We hiked a ton of trails and got a few ticks, and that was okay, and we turned it into a great time. Share the experiences that you have with others. This can be very fulfilling and very rewarding to your family. So our kids throughout the years have been exposed to foreign exchange students from Paraguay, Japan, China, Mexico, and Costa Rica. And we took these kids with us camping. And for a lot of these kids, that was the first time that they had had any exposure to anything like that in their entire life. So super fun for our family to expose them. There's the typical things. They're going to deal with bugs. They might deal with snakes. They may deal with other stuff. But it's part of that life-giving experience, and to give that to those kids and to let them actually experience something that they're not. Some of the friends of my kids are not outdoor oriented. So we have this wonderful thing. When the Olsen family leaves town, we get about an hour out at Wichita, and all cell phone coverage seems to just magically end. My wife gets on her app, she turns all the kids' phones off. If it's friends, we take the phones away at the beginning of the camp. So we get them out of that digital environment and get them to actually enjoy the camp. We've had a lot of those kids too have also had no other exposure to the outdoors or to anything else, and just don't know. They're not given those choices. They're not given those opportunities at home. A lot of them haven't even done dishes at home. So we give them those opportunities out at the camp and get them to experience stuff. If we cook meals and they're like, ooh, gross, I don't want that, we give them options of peanut butter and jelly and other stuff to eat, and they are not going to go hungry. We keep usually our food budget, we plan our food budget, and our food budget, it just kind of covers the cost of the food for the weekend. We don't go extravagant. If it's Kansas thunderstorms, we may say, okay, honey, we got room in the food budget, let's go to Pizza Hut and we'll call it good. So you can adapt at times and decide what you're doing. But usually you can do most of your camping just on your regular budget. You don't have to break out of the budget at all. And then it's really fun to do dream vacations. So we've done dream vacations. When I was deployed to one of the sandy areas in 2011, I ended up planning a huge vacation for us to go camping in a childhood favorite spot in Wyoming, Wind River Mountains, that I hiked tons when I was a kid. It's the first time that my kids got to experience backpacking, and we backpacked about 15 miles back in. My kids thought they were going to die. My wife got altitude sickness. She threw up on the trail for about 8 hours, but we had tons of fun. Kids thought that they were going to die on the way out. They're like crying. I have 3 girls and a son. The girls were crying. They thought that they were going to die before we made it out of that experience. Every one of them to this day begs to go again. So you get that negative to positive experience after the camp. We've done a unique vacation that my wife planned, which was a winter vacation during Christmas, where we actually rented a cabin in Estes Park, Colorado, and then gave kids the exposure to skiing for the first time. That almost ended up with a trip to the ER, because my son went down the hill with no assistance, and he was about 8 and almost wound up in a car in the parking lot. So had tons and tons of fun with that. We've went to the beach many times, Corpus Christi, and I had a very bad experience with a manta ray. I stepped on a manta ray, it stung me, and I went to the ER. But lots and lots of time enjoying the beach. So I'm going to bring my conclusion of my speech into the concept that the Olsen family camping experiences have led to lots of enjoyment, lots of things, and I'm going to end it on a quote from John Muir and Theodore Roosevelt, two of the greatest people that have contributed to all the national parks in the country. And it says, "We have fallen heirs to the most glorious heritage a people have ever received, and each one of us must do their part if we wish to show that the nation is worthy of its good fortune." And on that, I challenge you all to get out camping.